Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post another quick video here. This is going to be a video response to Andy Vinyl's Den, his Seven Deadly Sins contest. I can't remember who it was now. I saw someone that did a response to it, and I kind of traced it back to his channel. And really cool contest question, man. I've been pretty much been around the VC since it first started, and over that course of time, we've had hundreds and hundreds of thread questions and everything, and obviously, we're all asking each other about your favorite this and what you like and everything else. So, a lot of the questions that we do are somewhat redundant because there's only so many ways to ask what you like. So I just thought it was really cool with the creative way that you came up with using the seven deadly sins to to ask some of these questions. So really creative, really cool contest, and I definitely want to make sure I jumped on board and did a response. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, basically what he did was just kind of went through and took the seven deadly sins and kind of related them to music and record questions, and this is what he came up with. And so here's my quick responses. And of course, just like most of these things, you ask me the same question 2 days from now, and I'll probably give you some different answers on each one. But when I read the question, I just went to the stacks, and these are the things that immediately jumped out at me. So we'll start with Pride, which was the first one that he had, and it was simply name a record that you're proud to say you own. And like with most of these questions, I guess it really kind of depends on how you interpret the question. Proud of what you own, is that as in like collectible, rare, grail, that type of thing, or obviously a bunch of different ways you can take that. The way I kind of looked at that was more so of a record that kind of represents me. One of the things that I take probably the most pride in within my collection is not necessarily anything I may have that may be of great value. I mean, I love grails and all that good stuff, but the thing I think that I take the most pride in my collection are things that I know truly represent what's in my heart or who I am as a music lover. So oftentimes, those aren't the things that people say are like, cool or awesome and blah, blah, blah. But typically, it's those things that I know, oh my gosh, I'm going to catch flack for this, but it's kind of one of those things where knowing that it may not bring the best response from people, and not necessarily in a mean way, but just the things that won't bring the best responses from people are oftentimes the things that I may take the most pride in, not because I like, going against whatever, but more so because that's almost a confirmation for me that I'm really being true to my music love and not necessarily what what should be what I should be buying or what should be cool or what I should own or all that type of stuff. It's like I can't help it. This is horrible. This is geeky. This is whatever else, but I freaking love it, and that's why I have it. So that's kind of how I took that question. So in light of that, there's a bunch of cheesy 80s stuff that I could pull out and all that type of thing, but the one that really jumped out at me the most was this one here. So I was doing a little bit of rearranging last night and I actually came across this one, and I thought, and then I started seeing that question and made me think about Creed, which is not exactly the coolest band in the world to say that you love, so to speak. But I love Creed to death. You know, and it's kind of funny actually because I went and saw Metallica a few days ago, and maybe I'll do a video and kind of talk about that concert a little bit later. But it was funny because I saw this couple, and they were really cool, and so they came up to me and I was wearing my Slayer T-shirt, and and this happens every time I go to a concert, especially a metal concert. I'll usually have anywhere from, like, not exaggerating, maybe 10 to 15 people that'll come up to me and make some type of comment about, we don't usually see a black guy in a Slayer T-shirt. That's awesome. We don't usually see a black guy at a concert like this, and blah blah. Blah. And I think it's great. I mean, just because, quite frankly, it's just true. You don't often see a lot of black guys hanging out at Slayer concerts. But so I was talking to them, and then this other guy came up and he started talking to us or whatever, and he looked over at a guy and he said, does that dude have a Creed t-shirt on? Like, he almost just started bashing on him, and when the guy kind of turned around, somebody realized it wasn't Creed, it was something else. But I just thought that was kind of funny that the second he thought he was wearing a Creed t-shirt, he was just like ready to go off on him. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, I'm getting way off track here. But so yeah, I think Creed is one of those albums I would say I'm definitely proud to own. I love the band. I love pretty much all their studio albums, which I have on CD. I would love if they would put My Own Prison on vinyl, because I think it's probably my favorite album by them. But yeah, Creed is awesome. I love them to death. Yeah, they're totally and completely a popish, radio-friendly, grunge type of thing, which is why I think why a lot of people tend to hate them. But yeah, screw that, man. Creed is awesome. Love them to death. If they ever got back together and went a concert, I would go see them in a heartbeat. So that would be an LP I would say I'm proud to own. Greed, relating to an LP you would not part with for anything. And again, I'm thinking about this more so musically than value or anything of that nature. And the one that I decided to go with was Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. And I mean, again, when you talk about just albums that you could not live with no matter what, I mean, of course you could go to, Black Sabbath and I mean, all kinds of awesome stuff. But the reason why I pulled this album here, though, is because this is an album which, just musically, I would have to have in my collection at all times, because I think this is one of the most beautiful, musical, emotional, hard rock, hard alternative, virgin metal albums I think I've ever heard in my entire life. It never ceased to amaze me, the mixture that they were able to put on this album, from some of the most beautiful soft piano string type pieces with songs like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness or 33, and then being able to take it up a notch to things that are a little more emotionally powerful, like Tonight, or the smooth popishness of 1979, and then just like blowing your freaking head off with songs like Zero or Bullets with Butterfly Wings. It amazes me where they were able to go on this album, and then the way they put it together. It truly is just a beautiful work. That's really like the best way to express it. And so this is an album that I would have to have in my collection at all times, I guess, musically, because you just get so much from this. Really, really is amazing. Even just kind of listening to it, even the artwork on this thing freaking impresses me, because I think I've told the story before, where if I listen to things like the intro, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, and look at this cover and the artwork inside with the booklet that comes, it literally freaks me out. It takes you to this other very weird place, and just so much emotion and everything trapped inside that album. It's really unbelievable. So impressed with that, and to even think about putting that together, based off of Billy's voice and all that type of stuff. I still to this day don't understand how they did that. I really don't. It's very very Prince-like, because I can go back and listen to a lot of Prince stuff, and you can listen to something and say that's a good song, I like it, but if you really think about it, but how did Prince come up with that? Like, that doesn't even make sense. That how would someone that's as good of an artist as he is, that can play the guitar the way how does he sit down and come up with something that simple that doesn't even revolve around the guitar or revolve around the piano, or it's kind of that same thing with them. I think the creativity on that album is amazing. But again, I'm getting long-winded. Sorry about that. Let me move on. So we'll go. Next one, we'll go to Lust, an album you wish to own. Again, I didn't base this off of. I didn't base it off of value. Just more so, albums that I would love to have right now. Megadeth, Euthanasia is definitely one I would love to have. But I think the album that I would love to get my hands on if I could tomorrow would be a perfect mint copy of Mob Rules. I've had 2 copies of this in the past, and I've gotten rid of them because they weren't in perfect playing condition, all that kind of stuff. And I just haven't been able to get my hands on a perfect mint copy of Mob Rules. So that's one that I would love to have. 2 others that just kind of hit me as I was thinking about this question a minute ago. EPMD, Business Never Personal. I love EPMD to death. I have their first couple of albums on vinyl. I would love to have this one as well, because this has one of my favorite songs by them, which is Crossover. And then last but not least, another one I would love to have right now would be Neil Young, Psychedelic Pill. I think this is a 3 LP set on the vinyl. And again, I don't think it's the toughest one to find, and typically it runs anywhere from, what, $50 to $70, something like that. So I don't want to pay that much for it, but I would love to get just kind of a really nice copy of that as well. So those are just 3 that I would kind of love to have. And actually, there's a couple others that could go on that list, but I had some decent sales on eBay this past week, and they just reissued these, so I will be getting them. So those are no longer on my want list, and I'll do videos about those in the next week or 2 when they come in. So let's move right along. What do we got here? Albums you wish to own. Oh, Envy. So a band you wish you could be in. Very good question for that Deadly Sin. And it really kind of came down to 2. Metallica was definitely the runner-up inside of this. That's a band obviously I would love to be in. And actually, compared to the band I chose, Metallica is probably the one band that I would kind of enjoy playing those set lists each night if I was in that band. But the band I actually decided to choose was U2. So if I could be in any band today, U2 would be the one that I would join, and mainly just because I don't know. I mean, of course, U2 has a great catalog as well. I think actually this summer they're doing the Joshua Tree tour where they're playing the album in its entirety. I don't know, is it a 30-year anniversary or something like that? But so yeah, they have a great catalog you could play from as well. But yeah, there's a swag about U2. There's and I think it's kind of nice that they have the bigger than life presence, but then they also have kind of like the everyday average dude kind of presence, And then of course to be around the greatness of the creativity and the guitar playing of the Edge, which would really be one of the biggest pluses of being in the band. It'd be cool to be pals with Bono, but to sit and listen to the Edge create would just be also freaking amazing. So U2 would be the band that I would join. So that'd be my answer for that one. And moving right along, Gluttony, a band you can't get enough of, even if they have bad albums or all that kind of stuff. You're always with them, always taking them in, no matter what. And there are really 2 main bands today that are still putting out albums that I would say that about. That when they put out an album, I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to check it out to see if it's okay, whatever. It's an automatic purchase. And one of those bands is Metallica. Of course, whenever they put out anything, it's an automatic purchase. And the second would be Godsmack, which still arguably is my favorite band, which a lot of people tend to give me crap about, but they are. I've seen them in concert like 14 times, and I love it. Now, even though their last 2 albums, Oracle and I think 1,000 Horsepower, have, has not been anywhere near, in my opinion, on the level of their self-titled or Awake, which are my favorite 2 albums, which they so need to put out on vinyl. Still, it's Godsmack, and I love them to death, and I'll support them all the time, no matter what. And so, anytime they put out an album, good, bad, or otherwise, I'm going to pick it up. So I just love them to death. So, moving right along, the last 2, Wrath, an artist that you can't stand. Well, those kind of bounce around, but I think as of today, right now, number 1 on my list would have to be Katy Perry. Cannot stand her. Cannot stand, her music. Can't stand her. Can't stand her idiocy, the whole 9. cannot. So Katy Perry is ace number one worst on my list. So that's the artist I can't stand as of right now. Last one here, Sloth. Artist you used to totally dig, but don't listen to much anymore. Yeah, and the way that I kind of looked at that question, because one of the things that I've learned about myself and that people who really know me musically will know is that once I like an artist, I like you all the time. I've never been really into one artist and then all of a sudden I don't dig them anymore. So maybe I get rid of their stuff or whatever. It's just once I like you, I always like you. Once you're in my collection, you typically are always in my collection, and so forth. So yeah, I took that question in the spirit of maybe an artist that you listen to a ton all the time, could not get enough of it, and now maybe you listen to him just like any other regular thing in rotation, so to speak. And the one that came to mind for me on that, which I'm sure could be the same for a lot of people, would be the one and only Led Zeppelin. So this is a copy of Led Zeppelin 4, which is probably the one album that represents that the most. Because I think most of us would agree, and again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would think it's a kind of a safe bet that most of us would agree this is one of the most classic, you know, classic rock albums of all time. From front to back, almost every single song. But I think a lot of us would agree too that it's probably extremely hard to sit down and listen to Stairway to Heaven from front to back. Just kind of with the degree that it's been just so burnt out. If the radio didn't do it before, then we bought our cassettes and vinyl records and we played ourselves to death on it. So yeah, Led Zeppelin would sort of be my pick for that. Because I remember when I first discovered Led Zeppelin, of course, this goes back to junior high, high school, that type of thing. And I've told this story before, but I love telling it, so I'll tell it really quick again. Is that I grew up well, initially when I was younger, grade school, going into junior high, I grew up in the projects of the town that I'm from, and we didn't really have much of anything at that point in time. My parents were working hard and actually did some really great things, became very successful, and got us out of that situation, which I love them to death for. But up to that point in time, growing up in those initial years, my friends were people that liked Run DMC and liked, R&B music and gospel music, and that was just kind of my whole world. Most of my family sang in choirs, extended family, everything else. And so that was what I knew musically. Now, when my father gets his teaching job, becomes a professor, and moves us over a couple of states, and all of a sudden we go from projects east side of the town that I grew up in, and all of a sudden we're in complete and total, middle class, Midwest, whatever. All of a sudden, all of my friends, they're not Africa Mbata, Force MDs, that's not stuff they're listening to. They don't even know who those people are. They are, hey Brandon, here's Led Zeppelin, here's Queen, here's AC/DC, here's Twisted Sister. And, like all this stuff is just like, boom, 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 boom. And so anyway, again, I do love telling that story because it's so cool. But my friend Matt gave me a cassette tape that had actually a few things on it. It had Queen's One Vision was on there. The Who, Baba O'Reilly was on there. And then Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven was also on this tape that he gave me. And again, you talk about just rewind, play, rewind, play, rewind, play. And so for quite some time, a number of years, I was Led Zeppelin and Who crazy. And so, but yeah, Led Zeppelin is not something I go to on the shelves very regularly anymore whatsoever. I'll get a hair up my butt every now and then to, maybe go play one particular song off of this, or pull, a couple songs off of two or three or whatever the case may be. But, Led Zeppelin doesn't spin as regularly as it did once upon a time. Still spins, but just not as much as it owned the airwaves in my house for quite some time. So, anyway, short to long story on that. But again, I'll always love telling that story because it's almost like something out of a movie. And when I think back about how that affected my life and and how it sparked me musically. I just think it's really, really cool. So I have to give thanks to Matt, have to give thanks to John, have to give thanks to Kevin, have to give thanks to Mike, have to give thanks to Billy. Um, Jimmy Morris, too, was another guy that I would say, because he was... And again, I'm going to take a little bit of time here, but I'm not going to say anything else about the thread question, but I do want to tell this one little story, too. So if you want to hit stop, feel free. But there's a guy named Jimmy Morris who was kind of the strange dude in our neighborhood. He was like the one that would go to school, and he wasn't necessarily a metal guy, but he was just one of those, he would do anything that made him feel like, just like cool. Like, he was the one that would take bandanas and tie them all around his legs or tie them around the bottom of his pants. He would wear all kind of headscarves, and he was into all kind of music. He would like everything from hard rock and metal stuff to Prince and everything else. But he was just kind of like, that dude that just always wanted to show his personality. Well, on the rides home on the school bus, he always had his little boom box, and so he was the one in the back playing the music all the time, and the bus driver would let him. Well, I learned so much music through what Jimmy used to bring on that bus all the time. And like, even thinking back to that, the first time I ever heard Shot in the Dark by Ozzy Osbourne. Look, I'm getting chills even just telling that story. It was Jimmy on that bus. And again, you're sitting there on the bus ride home, and all of a sudden that kicks in, and you're just like, Jimmy, what the hell is that? It's like Ozzy Osbourne. I'm just like, that crap is awesome. Like, I've never heard anything like that before. And then another day, we're coming home on the bus. Jimmy hits play. It's Your Love by The Outfield. And again, I'm like, Jimmy, what is that? The Outfield, man. So, I mean, it was just like again, coming from that place where I grew up to ride on the bus every day with Jimmy, and like every freaking day we come home from school, I'm on the bus with a freaking pen and pad waiting to hear what Jimmy's gonna play today. So I would know it, because this is the day before the internet, of course. So you can't just go home and look stuff up and blah blah blah. Like, you had to know, you had to borrow tapes from people and make dubs and blah this and that. So anyway, I'm sorry to get into that whole long story. That question kind of brought that up, so thought I'd ramble for a minute. But anyway, again, man, congratulations. Great contest idea. Glad I was able to jump on board. I hope you get a lot of responses, and we'll see you later, VC. We'll talk to you soon.